Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Supper Club Presents Pizza Time. I brought pizza. Mine's boring and pepperoni, but I brought a guest that might excite us a little more than pizza tonight, Scottacus. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Marty. How are you?
I'm good. What kind of pizza did you select tonight?
Well, before I get into that, I have to tell you, Board contacted me this week and offered me $20 cash if I did the show eating a gyro wearing John Lennon sunglasses. But, in honor to you, I didn't take him up on that because that was a good offer. Instead, I went with a delicious Uno's Supreme. As you can see, I've eaten most of it. We used to have this chain in town and it went out of business. And the only place I can get it is our local grocery store. So this is like a once a year opportunity to try that out.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that and the other story. Adrian, we're going to have words. I'm not going to tell you ahead of time who I'm interviewing anymore.
He's a bit of a stinker, but oh well.
I know, but that's good. We'll get him back in the interview. I have a feeling. Could be wrong.
He would be worth re-interviewing, yeah.
Okay. So Scott, what's the origin of your nickname Scottacus? And how'd you get into pinball, if you could enlighten us?
Well, the origin of the name isn't very exciting. Back in the Stone Age, when all we had was antenna TV and 4 channels, one of my buddies in high school happened to watch the movie Spartacus and came to school the next day and said, hey, if we take your first name and add a cuss to the end of it, it sounds a lot like that. And, who doesn't want to be known as a young Kirk Douglas? So it kind of caught on and stuck. So that's the origin of that. The origin of getting into pinball. So when I grew up, all we had was electromechanical machines. And thankfully, my uncle had a boomerang in his basement. It's one of the tables that I made, actually, because of that. Mm-hmm. And by playing that, I got past the stage of pressing both flipper buttons at the same time. Actually, could aim shots a little bit. But the places that my buddies and I hung out with, they didn't have pinball machines. So in the day, we mostly played video arcade games. And so, pinball sort of fell onto the back burner for me for a number of years. And along that same lines of the arcade machines, one of my favorites is Gorf. And I found one that was pretty much dead in a Chicago electronics reclamation center. I bought that, brought it home, got it working. I built a couple of multi-ball cabs, and here in Wisconsin, our big gaming show is the Midwest Gaming Classic. It takes place in the Milwaukee area.
Yep.
And I went to that to take a look at arcade machines because that's what I was really interested in. And when I went there, I saw oh my gosh, pinball has gone crazy since the last time I played it. They've got DMDs and call-outs and sound routines and deep rule sets and multi-ball. And I was playing the pinball machines more than I was playing the arcade machines. So I thought, this would be kind of fun to get into. And as I was making my way out of the ballroom, there was an exhibit. And I walked past the machines. I thought, those look really pretty cool, nice and bright. And I got about 20 yards past it, and I realized, wait a second, there was something not right about those machines. So I turned around and went back. And I realized that they were TV screens. This isn't a real pinball machine. This is actually something that's virtual. So when I got home, I started researching, how could I do this myself? Was this something that the average person could do? And I found about VP9, which was what was going on at the time, and installed VP9, which those folks who have the all-in-one installer, count your blessings. That was really hard back in the day to get things to work. So you'd go on the forums and say, hey, this isn't working. And then the Thalamus or GTX Joe would say, you got to unblock this DLL and make sure you're running it in administrator mode and that sort of thing. But I got that up and running. And most people, when you're first starting out, you're a consumer. You're using people's software like Visual Pinball, you're using B2S, you're using people's tables, you're using front ends like Pinball X and that sort of thing. And after a while, I thought, what can I do to give back to the community? Because I'm just using all the time. And at that time, there were some VP9 tables that were EXE tables. I don't know if you've ever heard of those before. I don't know if they're before your time or not.
No, I came in right about that time.
Okay, so we're about the same vintage then. So those EXE tables are great, but they didn't use B2S, so there was no DOF for them. And I thought, well, here's something that I can actually do for the community. I can take these old EXE games and convert them into a little bit more modern B2S versions, and then release those, of course, with the author's permission. So only one of those, I think, still exists on the VPN U. That Gridiron table is one of those that I did a conversion on. But that kind of got me into thinking about, well, maybe I could actually create my own tables. And around this time, VP10 was coming out. So the physics got better. In general, gameplay in total got better. So I was able to take some of those tables that I kind of understood how they worked based upon doing the conversion from EXE to being B2S generated, and came up with my own pinball system for EMs, because when you're an EM author, you don't have the luxury of having a MAME to run, the game logic, or to take care of low-level things like player management, or ball management, or tilt penalties, or replays for high scores. All that stuff is on you. So as an EM creator, you have to generate your entire system. So like there's my system, there's Jeff Loserman 76, who's a great author, had his own system. Board Dog has his own system. A bunch of people, whoever does EMs, usually there's steals from somebody, which is perfectly great. I mean, anybody who wants to steal my stuff, go for it, or creates their own system. And so that's kind of the genesis of how I got into making EMs.
That's awesome.
You got a guitar on there. What's that all about?
Well, that's your guitar. Why don't you tell us about your hobbies outside of pinball? Maybe give us some insight into who Scott is.
All right. So
what is this kayak?
With the kayak, that's a long story. Well, I'll get to that after I give you the origin story for woodworking. So
yeah.
I grew up, my dad was a machinist. And so in our basement, we had a table saw, a bandsaw, a lathe, a drill press, all these tools. And when you're a kid, you think, well, everybody's got these tools in their basement, right? Because I got them in mine. So at any rate, ever since I was able to stand on a stool and actually get up to bench top height, I've been doing woodworking, maybe pounding nails into wood and, moving on from there. I took every class in high school that, was a woods related class. As a kid, I did projects like making toy soldiers out of wood and model airplanes and that sort of thing. And as a kid, I wasn't great at finishing things. So my dad, don't you remember this? There was this tape that you could rotate a disc on the top and press a button. It would make a impression, B, C, D, and this tape.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, my dad had that set up over the workbench that said any crap left on the bench for more than 30 days will be thrown away. And so that kind of spurred me into actually getting projects done, or getting them off the bench at least, so they didn't end up in the garbage can, because he would do it. So, there goes your tester's model that you've been working on that you just kind of forgot about for a while. But at any rate, woodworking has always been in, it's actually my genetics. My grandfather was a great woodworker. And I've enjoyed doing that pretty much all my life. The kayak is an interesting story. I got into model shipbuilding, and we can talk about that later. But at any rate, I like paddle sports, and I found a kit for making a kayak. So I got approval from my wife to go ahead and do that, brought it in, and it's a 17-foot kayak. It would only fit in my workshop diagonally. And to get around it, you had to shimmy around the thing to get to the next area. So my wife said, never again are you ever going to build a 17-foot kayak in our house. And after she saw how much fun I had with it a couple years later, she said, no, I wouldn't mind if you built me one of those. So together we built a 16-foot Daisy boat for her. So we now have not one, but two matching sea kayaks. So that was kind of a fun time.
That thing is incredible.
It's like a floating table. It looks like a mahogany glossy tabletop. It's pretty cool.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So you're married? Do you have any kids?
Yeah. My wife and I have been married for 32 years, and I am super thankful for her because she is so patient to give me the time to do these hobbies, because they're very time intensive.
Time-consuming.
And so I thank her, and everybody who is in the same situation should go thank your spouse for giving the time to do these hobbies. But we have 3 adult children and 2 beautiful granddaughters, and I am happily retired, which is an awesome gig. If you can do it, I highly recommend it. And we get out and do biking and walking on a regular basis to stay active. And in addition to woodworking, I do leatherwork. I do electronics, some programming, which I'm really a hack at, and because I know that because there are real programmers in these forums that know what they're doing. And I also, as you saw earlier, build guitars.
Yeah, let's get to some of that. So, I mean, we talked about it in the pre-interview, and we got the images here. Right now, the boat's showing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the boat first. But can you go through those projects? The boat, the little phone booth replica you made, and perhaps the guitar a little bit.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, when you're a woodworker, there's only so many bookcases, tables, large items that you can have. So if you're not selling them or giving them away, you got to find something else to do. And I found making miniatures of things was a really satisfying hobby. So a number of years ago, I got into model shipbuilding, making, the 3-foot long, fully rigged sailboat, ships, essentially. I made a couple of kits and had a great time with that. I was very active in the forums for that as a moderator in one of the forums. And then I got into what we call scratch building, which is you don't have a kit, you do it all yourself. And I built sections of things like that. There's one that'll go by, you'll see this brown thing with it looks like it's got a skeleton to it. It's a cross section of a British frigate. So half of it is actually filled in and half of it is just the structure of it. And I built that, and then I also did some research and built a Sea of Galilee boat based upon a book by Shelley Waxman. I took the line drawings out of that. So I took those 2 models to Midwest Model Ships competition and did really well, actually, with those. Won awards. Somebody was there taking photos for one of the shipbuilding magazines, and when the thing was done, I went home. And I got a call from a guy from Germany saying, can I buy your ship model? It's like, yeah, sure, I'll package it up. So I packaged it up, sent him to Germany, built another Sea of Galley boat. And then I got contacted by from England. Can I buy one of yours? So I packed that up, sent it off. And the thing repeated over and over again, and actually turned into a little side business where I build boats on commission for people. I've done up to a 4-foot long. And the thing was so huge, the crate I made for it barely fit in our minivan. I've been contacted by movie production companies to build full-sized ones. It's like, I can't build you a 27-foot boat. Okay. That's outside of my capabilities.
Work with my hands, not a crew.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how all that got started on the model ship end of things. And I like I said, I still do that. Before we started the interview, I was upstairs sewing sails for Sea of Galilee boats because I got more people who want those. There's hundreds of them around the world right now.
I want one. I'm not going to commission you to buy one from her just yet.
All right, that's fine.
Let me get a pinball machine. I'm jealous of what you got going on in the background there. You got CupHead, which we'll talk about.
The machine that was very nearly set on fire, I should say. I nearly took that in the backyard, poured gasoline on it, and lit it on fire. It was that frustrating.
But we're going to talk about that one. But what's the other one behind you? Is it 8-Ball Deluxe or Cue Ball? What's the other one? Oh, that's your VM. Your V-Pin.
No, that's my V-Pin. That's multi-ball. That was the V-Pin that I built after I got back from that convention. I met some pinball people, and in the process of it, I went to one of their houses and took every measurement possible for Black Knight. So that's a Black Knight cabinet, essentially, nice. With force feedback and Mike Roberts Pinscape boards in it. By the way, Mike Roberts, MJR, is just brilliant. I mean, that guy, everything he does is fantastic, be it board design. And the other thing about this hobby is everything's free.
Yeah.
It's all open source. So you can build it whatever you want. His software is fantastic. He's got Pinball and Pinball Y and core management software and an entire site on how to build machines. So that guy's
Mike.
he's a superstar.
I hope to have Mike here. on the show someday.
Yeah, he is fantastic. I've talked with him on forums and messaging. Great guy. That's another thing about this hobby. People are super generous with their time.
Yeah.
They're very willing to help you out and get things working right. And that's not common amongst a lot of hobbies. And so we really shouldn't take that for granted, the level of camaraderie that takes place in this hobby.
The friendships I've been able to forge interviewing you guys and helping new people get into the hobby, it's wonderful. They're genuine friends. And, you know, reaching out to someone like you were very receptive and open and willing to work with me. And I mean, we started having fun together making this. So
yeah, it's good. Although I still don't know why you got me. You got all these heavy hitters, and then you have me on here. It's like, oh well.
Yeah, you're all humble in your own way, but you're a heavy hitter to me. Much like you said when you started, you know, you wanted to give back. I mean, this is my way to give back. I can't script. I can't draw very well. But I can create content.
Yeah.
Show you guys off. So
I think that you hit on a point that it's important in this hobby. I don't think anybody does this in isolation. I mean, maybe Jeff did with his tables, but I think most people are collaborating with somebody else, because I don't think everybody has the whole skill set to be able to do. I mean, you can make a table, but if you want to make a great table, it takes great people to do that.
Well, and even if you do have all the skills, you want to share it with somebody. I mean, you want to get feedback on what you've done before you release it to the masses. So I see everybody collaborating. It's cool to see.
It is a blast. So yeah, I highly recommend that. If you can, you may think I don't have any skills for this. You probably do have something that you can contribute. I mean, those guys at UPenn Workshop working together like they do, everything they put out is golden. I mean, fantastic quality.
Even as a player, participate in the tournaments. I mean, VPX is growing, and you know, your participation is contribution enough. So,
and there's never been a better time to do this. I mean, the future is so exciting for what's being developed right now that I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah. Obviously, you play some pinball here or there. So I'm not going to ask if you play pinball much anymore, but
I play poorly.
I'm mediocre, moderately awesome at sometimes, but very, very unoccasional.
Isn't that the way pinball is, though? I mean, occasionally you play like a pinball wizard, and then the next game you look like a schlub. That's me, at least. I mean, the good players look good all the time, but you know.
I've learned to stop disregarding ball 3. It can be the most important ball of your game.
In my tables, it's ball 5.
Is it? Well, that's true. Although I was playing your 4 million BC before we sat down to talk, and 5 balls didn't help me very much.
That is a brutal game. You know who loves brutal games? Board. I mean, the harder, the more he likes it. So we sometimes have purposely made things harder than they really need to be just to make them harder for whatever reason.
Well, and you know, we've talked about collaborations. You've been a major contributor on a lot of other people's works, board included. But you've also done quite a few of your own. Let's talk about your tables first.
Okay.
2 of my favorites are what I call the weird ones. You got Nudgy and the Wiggler.
You like Nudgy?
I do. I like
hilarious.
it. I like it for its uniqueness.
Yeah. You know, I almost didn't release that table.
What?
I almost didn't release Nudgy. I didn't think it was good.
I would have been sad. I mean, I wouldn't have known I was sad, but I would have been sad.
There's a background story to Nudgy. So my brother and I went to the Chicago Pinball Expo, and we were, playing the tables, and there was a Nudgy there, and I had never seen anything like it before. So I shot a video of it, which is the origin story behind it. But what I like to do is I like to imagine there's an alternative timeline, because Nudgy came out in 1947, and in 1947 also came out Humpty Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty, the game that made it controversial.
Changed everything, yeah. So imagine an alternative universe where instead of flippers, people went with Nudgy instead. So you're nudging your 4 million BC, or you're nudging your medieval madness into creation. It's fun to think about these things, because it's an evolution. The pinball has changed over time. It's not what it was in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s has continually changed. And that was a branching point. I mean, I don't know what happened. The guys came back from World War II and were super creative because pinball just took off in different directions at that point in time, and for the better, actually.
They were thinking about gunshots going one way or the other. I mean, that has to be it.
Could be. They were our greatest generation.
They were. Definitely got a lot more done than we do. All right, well, let's go through your tables a little bit, and then we'll get to some of your other contributions. But you've done X's and O's, OXO.
Yep.
Triple X. Slow me down if any of these bring up certain memories or stories.
So you'll notice that a lot of my tables are like the same table kind of thing. One's a 2-player, one's a 4-player.
Right.
That has a little to do with some pinball history. The manufacturers would release tables at different price points to the operators. So the more people that you had in a game, like 4-player, the more expensive the table was, but the more revenue that you could generate by being an owner of that table. So to accommodate different price points, they released 2-player and 4-player tables. And sometimes in the case of like OXO and Triple X, they look very similar. In some other cases, Boomerang looks absolutely nothing like Flipper, or like Flicker. So, the varies by manufacturer as to what they do with it. But if I can go back to Nudgy for just a second.
Yeah.
Nudgy is really very unusual because it was an experiment to see if I could do something in VPX that's not built to do. And that's this. In VPX, you can move a visual primitive, but you cannot move a physical primitive. So a primitive is an object on a play field that can interact with balls, or it can be a toy that just, shows up. And so, a lot of times, like in my tables, you'll have these real fancy little flippers that move around. Those are just primitives. The actual physical flippers are hidden. And in Nudgy, I had to come up with a way to be able to move the entire play field and move the elements on the play field so they could interact with the ball. So actually in Nudgy, when you nudge the table forward, you're turning on a series of physical primitives to interact with the ball. And each one of those primitives has a different physics setting. So if you just hit it at first, it's not going to move the ball very far. But if you hit it like in the 4th or 5th frame, it'll really launch the ball up the table. And I think in VPX, this is extremely hard to do. In VPE, it'll be dead easy, because Freezy's planning on allowing you to move primitives around, which is going to be awesome, because there's a bunch of tables that I would love to do, like Nags. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's an old EM game that has a turntable with pop bumpers on it that spin in a circle. And so the pop bumpers are moving, the ball's moving. You can't do that in VPX, but in VPE, that might be a possibility. So I'm looking forward to that aspect.
I've not heard of that. I mean, what was the name again?
Nags. It's a Williams table. I think Henry Williams liked to visit Arlington a lot because he has a lot of horse racing themed tables in his company's releases, and that was one of the ones. I think it's cool because it's got a bunch of horses in the back of the machine that move along as the race goes on. So you try to figure out which horse wins. So there's a mechanical aspect in the back. I think that'd be an awesome table to do with board to get some cool three-dimensionality to it. And
I'll look at that when I'm going to Roanoke Pinball Museum here, hopefully in October. Hoping to get an interview with the museum, but I think they have Nags.
Yeah.
For it.
I played it at a Hollywood candy store in Omaha. Had one of those. They had a huge collection of really nice EMs, and that was one of the ones they had. And it's like, oh man, Board needs to see this. I think he's really going to love it.
And when you say turntable, is it a record player on the playfield?
No, it must be. I can't see the inside of the table, but it's a disc that has 5 or 6. It's one for each horse, I think. Pop bumper, and then during the game, that whole thing will rotate. So a ball could come in and not hit any of them, and then start bouncing around on the inside or get. Oh wow! Yeah, it's really very cool.
That's neat.
And it's old. It's from 50s, 60s. Yeah, it must be from the 60s. I don't think it's a wood rail.
Okay. And you mentioned the duplicates. I mean, I've seen that with a lot of boards, Post Time and other ones that have a 2 and a
Mm-hmm. That way it's like Pokemon. You can collect them all now. You can have everyone.
Yeah, all of them. Pirate Gold?
Pirate Gold was a beater table that I bought for $150 from this guy who is I don't know where he finds these old beat up tables, but one of my hobbies is buying old pins, restoring them, and then playing them, and then flipping them. So Pirate Gold was like almost destroyed. It was to the point where this maybe is past the point of salvage, but it's a Chicago coin table. I don't particularly like it because the flippers are so close that you have to work to get a center drain on that table. But I love the artwork. Christian Marsh did the artwork on that. He did the artwork on a lot of the classic pointy people 1970s tables, and I love the artwork on it. So restoring it was a blast, working with that and getting it up and running. And the other thing I really like about the table is check out the apron. The apron on Chicago coin tables will display ball in play on it, and that was really, Board had to work kind of hard on that to get that section to work out right and look great. I think he did a marvelous job on it.
Interesting. I have seen that on the apron. I didn't realize. I guess now I should, but that would be hard to program.
Yeah, that's a Chicago coin thing that they did. So instead of putting it on the back glass has got very little on it. It's just got like tilt and game over and the reels and the credit reel, and that's about it.
Okay. C. Ray, I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's the only table that has the seal of approval from Keith Moon. Got pictures of him playing that back in the 70s. I chose that one because I love the artwork.
I saw that picture. I didn't put it in your slideshow, but that was a cool picture.
Yeah, isn't that cool though? But I just love the artwork on that table. It's got that wiggle alley on the side. It's asymmetric to a degree. It's a Ted Zale table, and I just love his work. I mean, so many of my tables are Ted Zale tables, like Papersville, the Wiggler, Grand Tour, Sea Ray, Mariner, and 4 million BC. There's just a ton of them. He was a pinball genius, who is the Howard Hughes of pinball, because there's very little known about him. I don't think there are any photos of the guy, actually.
Well, you taught me that he made, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he introduce things like zipper flippers?
Yeah, that's his patent. And mushroom bumpers, and my Grand Tour table's the only table in the world that has butterfly rollovers. That was another table that I bought from my scrounging guy and rehabbed. So that table is completely legit. All the sounds are recorded off of it. It plays exactly like the table. It was a brutal table. And I do have to apologize to Thelmus, because when I printed the game originally, I put a high score of 1,500 on it, which is pretty much, I don't think you can do it. And he spent like a week and a half playing the game continuously to beat that high score. I think he was legit. So I apologize for that. Knock yourself out, but I don't think you're going to be able to get that.
When I booted up 4 million BC today, your high score was 50, and I'm like, oh, well, I could do this.
Oh, that's a coding error. I got to get to that coder. He did something wrong there.
That's like 50. That's like hitting the pop bumpers 3 times. I'm good.
Yeah, well, that way you can own the game. It'll be all your own high scores.
It is. It's all mine now. I got more than 500.
Until Board comes by and resets them all. Man, don't let him play your Rocky and Bullwinkle. You'll spend months trying to erase his initials.
I kind of missed that part earlier, so I'm going to back up. Rocky and Bullwinkle, I told you during our interview, but that was my first job. I worked at a restaurant called Bullwinkle's, and it was like Chuck E. Cheese, but it had Rocky, Bullwinkle, all of them. But we had the Bullwinkle pinball machine. How have you not destroyed that thing already because of all the problems that Dady's machine can have? Specifically, Nell and the saw blade and that kind of stuff. What do you do? Yeah. So that is the Achilles heel of that table. If you've ever played it, on the right side of the playfield, right next to the shooter lane, is a little sawmill. And on top of it is a plastic log with a little Nell on it. And there's a saw blade, and there's a motor that spins when you drop the drop targets that slowly moves Nell towards the saw blade and spins the saw blade towards her. And then if you hit the drop targets,
a spring returns her right back to the beginning. If you don't, and it reaches the end, it comes back. Really super cool toy.
Yeah, when it works.
Yeah, when it works, exactly right. So the problem is the designers of these games, I'm sure they didn't care how long they lasted. 10 years, that's a long time in the field, right, for earning money. So what they did is they saved a few dollars by using something called an asynchronous motor in them. Asynchronous motors are the kind of motors that you have like in your microwave. So when you start your microwave up, sometimes it spins clockwise, sometimes it spins counterclockwise. An asynchronous motor will drive based upon its last position. And the problem is these Nell units would drive backwards half the time, forwards half the time. And every time it drove backwards, it would stress out the brass gears inside the drive unit. And eventually those gears would shear, and then your Nell unit doesn't work. So I would bet that every Rocky and Bullwinkle out there today, if it hasn't had a Nell unit replaced, this probably doesn't work. And so mine was no exception. My machine really didn't work. It was a rehab. I rebuilt the machine to make it functional again, and that was like the last thing that didn't work. So I saw Marco had a motor for sale, so I ordered one, put it in, and it was no good because the motor was underpowered. It couldn't push Nell down towards the saw blade against the spring tension. So what would happen is sometimes Nell would go towards the saw blade, and sometimes Nell would go backwards away from the saw blade, depending on where she started out. So, in fact, I think one of the VPX versions of Rocky and Bullwinkle does that because they probably have the Marco in their machine. That's what they thought it should work. So I got to thinking about
it. Just jerks back and forth.
Yeah, how exciting. She's moving away from the saw blade. So I got to thinking about it. I thought, if you use the stepper motor and you control that stepper, you could drive Nell towards the saw blade for a determined time at whatever speed you want, and then turn her around, drive her right back again to the beginning. So I developed a little board called the Nell driver board that does just that. And it's pretty much plug and play. It uses the AC power that drives Nell, runs it through a buck converter to drop it, to make it, first of all, DC. I run it through a bridge rectifier, turn to DC. Then I run it to the buck converter to step the voltage down to 12 volts. And I use that to power an Arduino, which controls a little daughter board that then controls the stepper motor. So the whole thing, you just basically unscrew your old one, screw the new one in, put the plugs together, off to the races. And so I put that up on Pinside. I had a bunch of people buy them. I got tired of going to the post office, so now I just build them and send them to Terry at Pinball Life. I drop them off when I go see my beautiful granddaughter in Palatine, and then he takes care of selling them for me. So it's been a blast.
Wow.
It's been very gratifying. There's probably, I think I've sold 150 plus of them so far, so there's a lot of them out there in machines around the world.
The Nell board.
Yeah, so if you have a Rocky and Bullwinkle that doesn't work, call the number on your screen and talk to Terry at Pinball Life. He'll set you up. Yeah, exactly. But wait, there's more.
Supplies are limited.
Well, they are actually. I haven't made any for a while, so yeah, probably want to get on it soon.
Yeah, it's only once every granddaughter visit.
Yeah, well, no, it's here more than that, but it's right on the way. Stop in Huntley. Terry's a great guy.
Yeah, I've gotten to talk to Terry and Margaret a couple times.
Yeah, people. Although he did give me a very hard time when I built my
your CupHead.
Yeah, he's like, why did you build that? Why you want something like that? You can really real pinball. It's like, well, Terry, I can have 500 pinball machines in my basement for this. So hopefully,
to be fair, I got the same type of response from Marco Pinball when I was trying to get a free trim kit for my cabinet giveaway. But it's not a real cabinet; it's virtual. I shouldn't have said anything. Oh well.
Oh well.
All right. We already got Nudgy Mariner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Grand Tour.
Grand Tour, brutal game, but a lot of fun. And that was probably the best condition pinball I ever got. It required very little on the playfield, so I was really happy that one flipped fast.
Are all of these ones you bought and reconditioned?
Many of them are, but not all. Tropic Fun was one that I owned. It's kind of an interesting story, actually.
I don't see Tropic Fun in your list. Did I miss it?
Fun and Gulfstream, yeah, they're sister tables.
Oh, okay.
Gulfstream is a replay table, and Tropic Fun is this thing called an Add-A-Ball table. I don't know. Have you ever heard of an Add-A-Ball table?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay. Well, for the viewers who might not know, pinball was illegal for a while in places, especially like Wisconsin. And so you'll find add-a-ball tables around my home area here in Wisconsin. Basically, it was a way to get around gambling. If you look at some of the old tables, like Skyway, for example, you can get 11 replays on that thing if you score right. Nudgy's the same kind of way. You get a gazillion replays. And people would basically put in their nickel, play the game, get 20 replays, and then the proprietor would come over and hand them 20 replays in cash, set the replay back to zero, and hence you get this gambling thing. So one of the ways around that was to not give free plays, but give extra balls. So hence the add-a-ball tables will actually go up to 10 balls. So they start out at 5, and you can go all the way up to 10 and play for a really long time if you're good at it. So that was a fun table to make. I enjoyed playing it. It was the one table I thought I would never sell, but because I only have room for 3 and I built CupHead, it went the way of all the others.
And it's interesting you mentioned the gambling aspect. There's a lot of people, I think, in virtual pinball that don't know the story of how pinball was almost lost to Congress and how it was supposedly controlled by the mob and designed to be a gambling money thing. And maybe there was some truth to that, but there was genuine innovation, like you said, guys coming back from the war, engineering things that didn't exist for entertainment value. So, yeah.
There had to be some gambling aspect to it too, but sure, the guy that called his shot before, was it New York court of some sorts or other, and became a pinball legend. The sharpshooters named after him. Yeah, that was a turning point for pinball.
Mm-hmm. To show that it was a game of skill instead of a game of chance.
Yeah, exactly right. The early ones were these Bagatelle tables.
Sure, Humpty Dumpty was.
Yeah, with lots of pins, and if it falls in the right hole, you make points, kind of thing. Yeah, you could easily see how that could be construed as a gambling device.
Sure. 4 million BC.
Great table.
I hate you. Flicker.
The table that proves that burlap is the world's oldest fabric, by the way. I love the burlap on the back glass.
I do too. And you got burlap on like the plastics for the slingshots, and
you can never have too much burlap, I think.
No, I use it a lot in my haunted house.
You have a haunted house?
Yeah, I used to before I moved. I ran one for the kids every year. I took my two.
Really?
Yeah, we took our 2-car garage and I sectioned it out into 5 different rooms, and I would lead them through, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, one of the dorms on the campus that I went to had a haunted house, and it was one of the most scary things I've ever gone through. You went around this corner, you saw the exit sign, you thought you were done, and they had a chainsaw with the blade off of it, and a guy came out, started the chainsaw, and chased you out of it. It was like terrifying.
We have that here in Ohio times infinity. They'll swing from ropes on trees in the forest with that chainsaw right over your head. Mine was more designed for the younger set. There was some scare to it, but it was mild.
Okay, that's fair enough.
The scariest thing was me walking outside of the haunted house as Pennywise inviting people in. That was probably the scariest thing.
Well, good for you for doing it.
Thanks for bringing my memory back. Now I'm bitter I moved again because we don't get visitors on Halloween. Papersville Boomerang. I think that rounds out your list of tables.
Yeah, Papersville is a really fun table. That's a Ted Zale thing.
What's unique about that?
Well, multi-ball. I mean, think about this. We had multi-ball in 1966. That's
true.
Crazy.
That's insane.
If you take a look at the schematics for games at that time period, there's something inside of a electromechanical, we can talk about this later, but called a score motor. And a score motor is designed to block scoring while it's running, usually. But Ted Zale turned that off on his. So you can have a multi-ball and actually score points lots of different ways at the same time. So it doesn't block other scores from a create. It'll block scores like if you score 50 and you score another 50, well, the score motor can't run while it's running, so that gets blocked. But if you score 10s or 1s or whatever, and so I thought that was cool. And it has multiple modes to it too. We think about modern pins as having like different modes to them. Well, you could get into the into 4 million BC, the tar pit is a mode, for example, and the volcano's a mode. In Papersville, there's a deep 4 caper, that's a mode, and there's the what's the other one on the other side of the table where you can the code zapper is its own separate mode. So
I have to try that table.
Of things.
I haven't played that.
He also invented the one-way gate, lockable one-way gate, which is really pretty cool. You'll see that on those tables where you can't get into areas when the mode's in play, but you need to be able to get into them other ways. And he had lockable one-way gates that he designed, as well as that multi-stage ball sections, for lack of a better term, where you hit it once, it comes down, hit it again, it comes down, hit it a third time, hit it a fourth time, the ball comes out, you get a replay on it. That's all Ted Sales work.
Huh. Programmer of an early age. The electromechanical.
He was at retirement age when he started doing pinball. Crazy stuff.
Like a lot of us.
Yeah, I suppose so, now that you mention it.
Well, you mentioned it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So, Scott, what makes your EM tables different?
Oh, one of the things that's different about my tables is the way we handle sound routines on it. In pretty much any computer system, Windows Media Player, DirectX, like is in Visual Pinball, even Audacity, what they do is if you've got something panned hard left, it's at full volume, and the right is at no volume. And as it comes to the middle, both of them are at full volume. And then as it goes off to the right, the left fades out and the right's at full volume. And what that does is it puts a peak of volume in the middle. That's about 3 decibels. And 3 decibels is oftentimes used as a cutoff for can you tell the difference between the volume of these two sounds? So what my brother did, who is one of the smartest people I know, actually. He's a retired electrical engineer who's worked in audio circuits, for many, many, many years, is he built in a constant power pan and a constant power fade that I use in my tables. So sometimes people will say, hey, your tables are quiet. Why is that? Well, they're not really quiet. They're the same sound everywhere. So unlike that, left is at full and middle is at double, essentially at 3 decibels higher, my brother's algorithm cuts that middle down so it's the same volume all the way across. And where that really shines is if you've got a table with quad exciters inside of it. By using this system, you can actually hear exactly where the ball is at on the table. And I think it's a big improvement. It's not a knock against VPX because, like I say, all computer systems seem to use the same sort of algorithm where they never cut a signal. They always leave the signal as hot as they can. But with this system, like I say, it gives you constant power all the way across. All I got to do is turn my table up a little bit because what you're hearing is mostly, the middle of the table seems louder because it is louder, but mine's exact volume on the outside edges. So I think that's a real nice improvement that we use.
Huh. That's cool. Another old guy in this hobby. You've worked with him quite a bit. Adrian, Board.
Yeah, Board's a great guy.
Yeah, quite often you've worked with him on his tables. Do you have a favorite Board table, and does he pay you in old cellulose?
He's the only person who could actually identify all the people on Flickr. I had no idea who some of these old cinema people were, but he's a big fan of black and white film.
Cinemaphile.
Cinemaphile, yeah, exactly. So he's done so many great tables like Space Shuttle and the whole Jackbot series. I like his Centigrade 37 table. I think that's a great table.
Agreed.
Crosstown, that's another really good table. I don't know, did you ever find the Easter egg I put in that?
I can't say I've played it.
Oh, okay. Well, in Crosstown, there's the back glass has got a subway car on it, and there's doors that open and close on it when you do various things. And behind the doors is this tuba player trying to get off of it, and people are pointing at him, and it's a kind of a funny scene that you can generate if you hit the right shots. Well, at any rate, I put some code in there that if you put all 5 balls, because it's a ball lift table, so you can lift 5 balls at one time into the shooter lane, then the doors open up. There's Jimi Hendrix there, and the table plays crosstown traffic while you're playing this thing. Adrian's kids or Board's kids love it. They would purposely put all the balls on the table and play them all at one time. I don't recommend you do that because, like we talked about before, the score motor will block scoring. So you're not going to get a real high score, but you'll have a good soundtrack while you play. But at any rate, that's a good table. But I have to say, my all-time favorite board table is Farm Time.
Farm Time. What's Farm Time? I haven't heard of that one.
You haven't played Farm Time?
No,
I don't think it's available right now.
Oh, Adrian, what are you doing? What's Farm Time?
He made it with his son when his son was like maybe first or grade or kindergarten. So it's got all this little kid artwork on it. It's basically a reskin of Air Aces by Bally.
He did mention this, but it's not out. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so Air Aces has this table where there's a bunch of drop targets at the top and you shoot them. And for this game, he put farm animals on the drop targets. So the center one's a turkey, and there's like 2 cows, 2 sheep, 2 chickens, 2 pigs. And on the back glass, do you remember those Mattel speak and says, where you turn the dial and
cow says,
dog says, woof.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. There's one of those on the back glass that spins to a various, farm critter, and then that farm critter plus a turkey pops up, and you got to shoot the farm critters down. And the table never got done because Adrian hasn't done the voiceovers for it. He was going to do some voiceovers like, my barn door's open, the chickens got out. So if you want to see Farm Time, folks, call the number on your screen or message Board. Yeah, exactly. Let him know that we need to get this done so that this table can be fully released for everyone to enjoy. And I'm sure it'll become a cult classic after that.
I need everybody to private message, email, FTP, use AIM, ICQ, whatever you need to do to reach out to Board.
Because we need your support.
We need Farm Time. Sign the petition. Join today.
Yeah.
And I think all the Farm Time animals need Euros and John Lennon glasses. But I'm just bitter.
You shouldn't be bitter. Adrian stops by with his family periodically, and I actually played Farm Time with his son, the one who designed it. And you should have seen his eyes. They got huge, like, oh, you've got Farm Time? You want to play that game? So, yeah, we had a great time.
Knowing you're probably working on a homebrew of Farm Time.
Shh, we're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring that up. So, yeah, you worked with Board on another fun table, Skyway. You did scripting on Whirlwind, the old Whirlwind, the wood rail.
Yeah. What do you think of Skyway's ball return cover? Isn't that one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen? That just a gorgeous table.
The whole table is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was in for when I started playing it. It just looked so cool. It's
a highly sought table, actually. That's one of the holy grails of wood rails for collectors. So it's nice that everybody can play it on their cabs.
Yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing about this hobby. We can preserve things that may not exist for a long time.
Right, and you can play things that you've never played. I've never played a Papersville. I built it because I thought, this looks so cool. I wonder what it's like. And VPX's physics are just that good that you can create something and it plays just like the real thing.
I wouldn't have known about Nudgy and the Wiggler if not for you and VPX. So yeah, no, I agree. And EMs don't get enough love. They provide a challenge that solid states and today's modern Sterns don't give you, or give you in a different, more complex way. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's good to be an EM fan going to gaming conventions because you never have to wait in line. You'll be stacked up 20 deep behind the latest Stern.
Everybody's playing Godzilla or whatever it is.
Exactly. You just walk right up to Crosstown and play it anytime you like. So, but
you're right.
Don't let that out because then I'll have to wait in line. So don't let people know how cool they are.
Okay, I'll keep it on a down low. So you worked on a number of tables with Board, and even another further collaboration with One Box when you guys worked on Oh Brother Where Art Thou, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wasn't the first time that I worked with One Box though.
Yeah.
The first time I worked with them was with CupHead, actually. So I have to confess, true confession time, I don't keep up with what goes on in virtual pinball. I usually rely on Adrian to call me up and say, hey, did you see they're doing this? Or, hey, you see you doing that? And then I'll go check it out. So about once every 6 months, I'll download a bunch of tables. And I had no idea what CupHead was. But I love the way the animations and such work. I mean, there's fantastic looking, what do they call them? Rubber hose animation, I think is what it's called. Fleshman Studio rubber hose. And I thought, well, this would be kind of cool. And I played the table, and it was fantastic. So the next time I talked to Adrian, I said, have you tried this CupHead table? He said, yeah. I said, you know what it needs? He said, I know exactly what it needs. And he said, 2-inch flippers. I said, sure, darn right, it needs 2-inch flippers. So we redesigned the table just for giggles, just the two of us. We added a multi-ball mode to it. We changed a little bit of the layout, and we're having a good time with it. And I thought, should we contact the author and let him know we did this? You know, is that okay? And Adrian said, yeah, I think so. And it's like, well, do I contact this guy and then have him say, you know, you suck, you worked on my table without my permission, and I hate you, kind of thing. So I contacted OneVox, and he is the coolest guy. He's like, this is awesome. Let's work on this. So the three of us got together and made what became CupHead Pro.
And that's the Perdition edition, right?
That's the one that he released on the site that's now defunct, but probably is up on VPU.
It's on VPU. Yeah.
Yeah. A great table. Fantastic.
We played it in a tournament.
Yeah. And so he said, I got this idea for another table. This guy he could work for Stern developing tables. He is super creative. And he said, have you ever seen the movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou? I said, yeah, it's a good movie. He said, I've got this table. I got ideas for it. So together I scripted the table, and he did all the visuals on it, and turned out fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And he's got a few other tables that are in the works right now, so I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Yeah, we'll be talking to him too. So we'll let him talk about his upcoming projects. But yeah, I'm excited anytime you guys work together. Cool stuff. Before I approached you, I knew about all the EM machines you'd pumped out, and I knew about CupHead the Homebrew, but I didn't put two and two together.
CupHead the Homebrew.
You know, I voted for you, by the way, in the Twippies.
Oh, bless you.
Anywhere I could support you before I knew who you were, I was. But
good.
That was an exceptional idea, so well executed. I mean, it looks amazing with the small level of detail I can see behind you right now on the actual playfield. But you did an amazing job on that. I know it was a labor of love. Please tell us the story of how you brought CupHead to life as a homebrew.
Oh, yeah, that's a good story. So a number of years ago, one of the guys who I really admire, Borg Dog, released a table called Knobs. In fact, he just re-released it on VPU just this last week. And it's a card game. You know, a lot of EMs are card game based, but this one is based around a game called cribbage. So Knobs is one of the aspects of the game cribbage. I thought, this is really I love playing cribbage. This is a fun game. And so I was talking with him, and he said, well, you know, I'm building a homebrew. It's like, you're doing what? I'm making a real version. It's like, can you do that? It's like, yeah, sure. So he sent me links to his homebrew page where he's detailing the process of building this. And I thought, oh, that is just too cool. Someday I want to do that, but I'm not creative enough to come up with these ideas. And so when we worked on CupHead, you know, it'd been a couple of years with OneVox, I thought that could be it. That could be the table that I make as a homebrew. So I contacted Pete, and he said, yeah, sure, go for it. I'll send you all the art files, whatever. So that was the start of CupHead. To make a homebrew, well, in my mind, there's a few different types of homebrews. The easiest homebrew to do, and the one that I lost out to on the Torpy Awards, but I'm not bitter about this, is a reskin. So basically you take a table like Evel Knievel, you make new artwork on the playfield, you change the back glass, and you play the game, and you're good. That's like the easiest way of doing it. The next would be to take a game that you know the shots are going to work because it's a production table, right? And you like playing it, and you change the rule set. So you change the graphics and you change the rule set a little bit. That's the second level. the deep end of the swimming pool is when you develop a game that has never been made before and you have no idea if it's going to be any fun. You're going to spend 1,000 hours working on something that you may have as an albatross around your neck for the rest of your life. So I knew that CupHead was going to be good because of the work that Roth and the devs have done on the VPX physics. They are so good that if it plays well in VPX, it's going to play well in reality. And I'd be surprised if major pinball manufacturers wouldn't use VPX as a pre-whiteboard. So
a lot of people do. If you've heard of Jack Danger, he used VPX for the Jurassic Park home pin prior to moving into reality.
Perfect example of how you can model things in VPX and bring them to reality. Now, one thing I did learn in the process is there are things that you can do in VPX that you can't do in reality. Like if you've played CupHead, you know those two little saucers on the sides, the dash saucers that kick the ball up. If you had a ball kick like that, it would shatter your glass because it has to go up and out as opposed to just straight out like in a VPX table. So, I had to change those shots a little bit, but by and large, the table played pretty much like I would expect it to. So at any rate, the first thing I did was to use a tool called the VPX MPF bridge, which allows you to use something called Mission Pinball Framework, MPF, to write all the code, the thousands and thousands of lines of code that run the table first, link it to Visual Pinball, play it in Visual Pinball, and have Mission Pinball Framework take care of all the game logic and scoring to know that your code actually works.
Oh, cool.
And then once you've got that, then you can go ahead and buy a donor machine, start breaking that down, and then use that as the basis for your pin. So before I even bought the donor table, I knew the thing was going to work. The problem is Mission Pinball Framework was really hard for me. I had a very difficult time. That's where the machine nearly got lit on fire several times because situations where it's like, I don't know how to make this. I've got a lot of the code working, but I got like one piece that isn't quite right on a multi-ball.
Right.
And there's support for it. There's a forum. There's great, fantastic guys developing code for it, but it was just hard for me. And then the other thing is, inside of a Homebrew, you've got a PC that's actually running the game. So Mission Pinball Framework's running on that. And then you need to have something that allows you to interface that with the physical machine. So the switches, the coils,
right,
the lights are all driven through a board that I was like the crash test dummy for it, called the Cobra Pin board. A guy by the name of Thomas Fullenwider came up with an all-in-one solution board about the time I was getting ready to build CupHead. So I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. And this guy's brilliant. He's an electrical engineer, designed this board. I got a prototype of it. And we found some problems through my working on it that he was able to utilize in the final.
Where'd you find him, on Pinside?
I did. I found him on Pinside, and he was fantastic to work with. And we were able to get all the bugs solved out of it. And I stole an idea from Board Dog for the back glass. It's actually a full-size TV that goes into the back of the machine. So it sits inside the machine, which is exactly how I would rebuild a V-Pin. If I ever had to do it, I would just use two TVs, one for the playfield, one for the back box, and just put everything on that. But yeah, it turned out great. It plays amazingly well. I would love to take it to a pinball convention. COVID's prevented that to this point in time, but I'm hoping to get it to the MGC this next year and see how it goes. Stand over it like watching your only child. Hopefully it doesn't break.
Well, I'll be there with you.
No, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll help you man the machine half the time if you want. Split the load.
Perfect. Hopefully we spend more time with the playfield down than up.
Yeah, it'd be good. Good. And hopefully nobody sets it on fire like you almost did a few times.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That is I probably could do something like that if I applied myself, but you, sir, are amazing to have followed through, not left that on the workbench longer than 30 days, so Dad threw it away. I'm proud of you, if that means anything. I know I'm
my brother
no one to you.
You're perseverant if nothing else. I was like, oh yeah, you're right, to get through that.
And it looks amazing. I was watching your progress on Pinside as you built it. It was much like the blog you shared for your guitar and your boat building. You bring people along the journey. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed that, because I everything is there. The failures and mistakes are there, as well as the successes, because you learn as much from your failures and successes. Yeah.
No, you need that.
Yeah, that was very disheartening when I did the apron for this, and I used a paint that lifted, pulled the masking off. It's like I put on the can, sticks kind of to metal. Yeah. Oh well, back to the drawing board.
You live and you learn.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you become a wise sage who can teach the younger generation, hopefully.
You might even say venerable, which I saw you put in the promos. I don't know exactly what that means. Should be pleased with that or not?
It was a compliment.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
All right,
but
fair.
yeah, you're a wise sage.
I don't know about that, but
A well-rounded individual, a Renaissance man.
Oh, that's like the highest compliment you can get, so I'll take that and run.
I admire you.
Oh, appreciate it.
So you mentioned VPE. I know what you're working on, but why don't you tell everybody else what's next for you? Who are you working with? What are you doing?
Well, working with is kind of a strong word. I would say advising would be a better way to put it. Yeah. I'm working with JSM 174 and Freezy on the EM aspects of VPE. And I have to say, I am super excited about that. Earlier, I mentioned that when you do an EM game, you're in charge of everything. You know, you have to do player management, you have to do balls, you have to score motor, it's all on you. These guys are doing it right when they're making the system, and they're putting score motor in, working on the code right now so that it'll be native to
Built into the engine.
Built into the engine. So, why is that important? There are like 3 aspects to a game that you control. You control the visuals. You know, does it look good? You control the play of the game, like how does it play? Does it play well? You know, the physics right, whatnot. And the third thing you control is sound. And the sound is oftentimes an overlooked aspect of games, but if it's not right, you'll notice it. And what a score motor does is, if you score 50 points, the reels just don't go from like 1,000 to 1,050. It goes 1,010, 1,020, 1,030, 1,040, 1,050. And you hear that in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, or when the machines reset, you get that sort of thing is going to be built into VPE, and I think that is absolutely amazing that they're taking the time to do it right from the beginning. It was one of those calls from Adrian. He said, "Hey Scott, you know that they're starting to work on VPE and they're thinking about using Mission Pinball Framework." It's like, whoa, get on the bat phone and call Freezy. Don't do that. You know, there's got to be a different way of doing it. And they actually listened to me, which is amazing. And they used a system that's native to Unity, where you program in code blocks. So, you know, you'd put down like a score point block, and then you would say 50 on that, and then you would link that to the next thing. And the score motor is going to handle all that. So you don't have to say, you know, do 210 and then wait, you know, X milliseconds.
You don't have to script it in there.
It'll all be there. Yeah, it'll be all there. And the resets, you know, B2S is fantastic, but it only shows you what you give it. You know, it's not meant to rule the way the game plays. So if you just say go to 0, it'll go and spin all the wheels right up to 0.
Right.
But if you tell it to step, it'll do that too. But this will be native to that engine. And then along with that, you know, they built a volley table. I don't know if you've seen the EM volley table that JSM.
I think I saw the VR flyover on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I built Grand Tour in VPE just to see if it could be done. You know, so this is a non-dev, you know, someone who has no idea what they're doing, working their way through the system. So it's like, you know, strap on the crash helmet, go for it, dude. And it worked out fantastic. The table
That's awesome.
plays great. It looks great. I think it's going to be a wonderful system when they're done with it.
It sounds like it's going to enable more individuals to become creators too.
I think making a solid state game is going to be like falling off a log. it'll be even easier than VPX, and I can guarantee you that making EM will be far easier than VPX. So it'll be great.
I got some ideas I want to look at, but the tools available today are going to require me to learn a lot of different areas. So, or collaborate as you have done, right? So
that's the best way.
It is, and even with VPE, it will continue to be. You build better things as a village than you do as individuals.
Yeah, the VPW guys prove that, don't they?
And then some. There's many teams out there that are proving it, but VPW's taking all the individual guys under their wings, and then they start to see the benefit of getting input from others as well as assistance. It's really cool to watch, and lightly be a part of. I'm just a tester and a content provider, but you guys make me feel a welcome part of that group. I'm not a part of VPW, but it feels like, a community there, a family. So, pretty cool.
And those VR Discord guys, those guys are fantastic as well.
Yeah.
When I re-released my tables, I made them in VR. I had no idea how to do any of the VR stuff. So Studley, Gurite, and Rod, and those guys were super gracious. And here's a VR room that you can use. And your table's floating above the floor by 2 inches. Let me help you with that kind of thing. And it's just super great guys. Can't say
everybody wants to help. It's wonderful. Paladin and Arcade and I were working a pup pack with Hawkeyes, and Paladin said, "I want to end Fozzie and Fleep to Shrek," and I'm like, "Yeah, go for it, man." And he ended up going and getting a help shop, and VPW guys helped out, and it was 2 weeks later. It was a 500% better table than it previously had been. So it's amazing what people can do together.
I'm amazed at how Roth has improved and Fozzie have improved the physics. I mean, before you couldn't drop multiple drop targets. You play CupHead, the CupHead behind me, you drop multiple drop targets all the time.
Yeah, because it's real.
Yeah, because exactly. And
you can slide the ball along the whole bank. Yeah,
exactly. And that's going to be, from my understanding, native to VPE. So a lot of the stuff that we have to hack in VPX, and this is not a bash of VPX. VPX is fantastic. It's
amazing for what you're given.
Wonderful software that has been incredibly well supported and developed over the years. Great stuff. But I mean, this is the next level. VPE will just kick it up a notch, which is why I say I'm so excited about where this hobby is going, because its future looks extremely bright.
I'm anxious to hear more about its development. I've already spoken to Freezy. I want to give him, maybe till next year before I really start bugging him. Give him time to work on it.
Don't divert him. Keep him focused on VPE. That's where we need him to concentrate, because he is the engine that drives the whole thing. So.
Yeah, but with collaborators like you, it makes it easier on him. And if one day I interview him and get the word out there, and somebody goes, "Wait a minute, I know how to do that."
Yeah.
We get another The Fishbowl or Rothbauer, right? I mean.
Yeah. Well, I know Roth is already working with them, but guys like JSM 174, I can advise you, but I can't write the C# code for this.
Yeah.
I'm a software engineer. He is, and he writes wonderful code to support and develop the system even more.
Yeah, well, let's keep coming together. Let's keep doing stuff together. Let's talk again if you have any other projects, or when VP comes out, once you start in that realm and producing your stuff there. That's most of the questions I have for you today. Do you have any final thoughts or anything we didn't cover that you want to bring up? Because I did go a little over the place.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. I just want to say how many super talented people there are on these systems, and not only that, but just in pinball in general. For example, there's a guy that I've been blessed to meet, Wally, just by Wally Be Good on Pinside. And this guy, they've reissued like Medieval Madness and he builds those things from scratch for himself. He's made 2 Medieval Madnesses, Monster Bash, Scared Stiff, Cactus Canyon Continued, Twilight Zone. I'm going to go to his house in a couple of weeks and see. He's got all the parts from Indiana Jones. I mean, he's actually a rocket scientist. So, I mean, there's some incredibly talented people in this field, and the programmers that we've got, the art guys like Board, the creative guys like OneBox, the VR guys, Thalmus out there helping, bounce things off of Board Dog and the great work he's done. I hate to mention names because I'm going to forget somebody, but we're very blessed to have such a talented group of people in this hobby.
Definitely. And you're one of them, even if you don't think you are. Something I know I forgot, but you showed me. Can you show the audience your little portable VR pinball rig?
Oh, yeah. So VR it's mind-blowing. I'm going to date myself now, but the first time I put on a set of VR goggles was like listening to Dark Side of the Moon in headphones with the lights off. It's transformational. So I thought, well, VR is a lot of fun. Pinball is a lot of fun, but you're kind of stuck wherever you're at unless you want to play on a desktop. What if you could make a portable VR pinball machine that you could take with you to a friend's house or whatever and play? So I came up with this idea. It's my little portable VR kit. So basically what this thing does is it can clamp down through these onto a tabletop. It's got one of MJR's Pinscape boards, so it's got force feedback. You can nudge the table and it'll nudge. It's got a plunger on it, MagnaSave, and flipper buttons. The thing is super light, and you could just take it with you, set it on the desktop, clamp it down, and you're off to the races playing VR.
So kind of like one of those steering wheels you buy for your PC and you clamp it to your desk, like that?
Exactly right. Yes, you can learn how to drive with this as well. But it's the one downside I do see to VR is it's isolating. If you get a bunch of people at your pin cab and you play, you're all, like, oh, look at your wonderful shot or whatever. In VR, you're the only one seeing it. And Freezy has actually had interest from a woman from, I forget the name of the company now, but they are doing augmented reality.
Mm-hmm. AR?
AR. You can see through and things are projected holographically. So I think that is actually going to be a part of the future of VPE, because he's got a heavy hitter in the industry who's interested in, supporting her platform with new forms of software. And one of the things that's really important to Freezy and guys like MJR is open source. So, this is open source. Any table that we release in VPE will probably be some sort of binary table, but along with that, you'll get the source for it. So you can actually look at it and say, hey, how did he do this? How did he do that? Sort of like we do with VPX right now.
Yeah.
I think that is a super exciting future. Agreed.
It can only go up from here, and with all the new people collaborating, as you were talking about, it's an exciting time. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have anything else, I just have one last item for you.
What's that?
I don't mean to be disrespectful. You and I have spent a few days together, but trash talk is kind of becoming a tradition here at the end of the stream. And I really want to hit you so hard it sends you back to the Stone Age because of what you did to me with 4 million BC. So, you game for a head-to-head battle after we're done talking here?
The game is so brutal, I could see how that could be the case. Absolutely, yeah. I can show my lack of prowess at pinball for the entire world to see, and that's just fine, because I'm very secure. I did fashion show with boards, so I'm a very secure individual.
I'll do the runway with you later, too. But let's go back to the Stone Age. We'll club some women over the head. Yeah, and you can club me over the head, because I'm not very good at 4 million BC yet. So
I will show you the tricks to scoring high. Stay tuned.
Excellent. We'll do a mini tutorial for you, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for coming tonight. Scott, again, thank you.
Thanks for the pizza.
Yeah. And to you at home, we appreciate you. And thanks for joining Scott and I on this little journey tonight. We'll do a battle afterwards. And thanks for coming. Say good night, Scott.
Good night, Scott.